The Life of Monkey D. Luffy, Part 5, One Piece. Previously on the Amagi, Luffy, a time skip, the New World, Gear 4. Long ago, we started a series of videos called The Life of Monkey D. Luffy. From humble times in the East Blue, many adventures along the way, and even a time skip, 2 years later, we're finally caught up to current events. This is The Life of Monkey D. Luffy, Part 5. Welcome to the Amagi. In today's video, we're going over The Life of Monkey D. Luffy Part 5. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. YouTube does this thing where it unsubscribes viewers from channels that they're already subscribed to, so if you can, double check if you're subscribed if you want updates from us. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media accounts. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Wano Country Arc. As the Thousand Sunny continued towards Wano Country, the group was informed of the levely through a newspaper. They later encountered an unusual weather disturbance in their direction, followed by an octopus on their ship as well as a school of huge carp on their side. After a bumpy ride across a river, the ship climbed up a waterfall. After reaching the top, they came across a whirlpool. Luffy helped his group escape but was held back by the octopus before he could leave the ship. Luffy and the Thousand Sunny later washed up on a beach at Kuri, and Luffy woke up when a crab pinched his nose. He then encountered a Komainu and a baboon wielding a katana. While the Komainu and the baboon were fighting, two beast pirate scouts were riding nearby. When they spotted Luffy and the Sunny, they tried to attack Luffy, but the latter easily defeated them and saved a little girl they had captured in the process. One of the pirates ordered the baboon, known as Hihimaru, to attack Luffy, but the latter stopped the baboon with a glare. The little girl Tama then knocked out the enemy pirate, and the girl managed to tame Hihimaru by feeding him kibidango, created from her own cheek. Tama explained to Luffy where he was and what had happened to her, and after taking Sunny to a secure location, she offered to feed him as thanks. She took him to her master's house where she made him some rice dishes. After he ate, Luffy was confronted by Tama's master, who was angered that he ate the rice that she rarely got due to having spent her whole life weaving kasas every day. Tama explained to her master that she gave Luffy the rice to thank him, but she then got sick due to having drank some of the river water that was contaminated by Kaido's factories. Her master revealed that she had decided to continue living in Kuri to wait for Ace, who had promised to return there. Luffy then informed them that Ace died, causing Tama to become upset and pass out. Hitetsu berated Luffy for saying it so directly, and told him about Ace's visit as well as the destruction of Tama's village. Luffy then offered to take Tama to the town to see the doctor, and Hitetsu told him to look for his allies. After changing his clothes, Luffy took the sword Nidai Katetsu with him, and Hitetsu tried to stop him due to fearing its curse, but was unsuccessful as Luffy left with Tama. As Komachiyo gave them a ride through the bamboo forest, Tama accused Luffy of lying and explained about the promise Ace made to her. They later entered a wasteland and Tama explained about the terrible environment created by the beast pirate before falling unconscious again. Luffy later spotted Zoro saving a woman from Kaido's thugs. He then reunited with his crewmate, but they were confronted by Hawkins shortly afterward. Hawkins then read Luffy and Zoro's fortune, saying that they had 19% chance of surviving at the end of the month. As they prepared to fight, Zoro noticed the sword Luffy was carrying and asked to hold onto it, but Luffy decided to use it. As Hawkins' men attacked, Luffy used a pinch instead of attacking with the blade. One of the giant lizards tried to bite Luffy, but he dodged it, grabbed it, and threw it at Hawkins, who caught it with his straw sword. Luffy was then surprised when Zoro attacked Hawkins with a flying slash to the face, but the damage was redirected to one of his men. After explaining about his Wada Wada no Mi, Hawkins conjured a giant straw entity. After he drew a card that made his men attack each other, Komachiyo dragged Luffy and Zoro away from the battle. Hawkins' straw figure pursued them until Zoro sliced it in two. After getting away from Hawkins, the woman that Zoro saved earlier introduced herself as Suru. Upon seeing Tama in critical condition, she asked the two Straw Hats to bring Tama to her tea shop so she could help her. They later arrived at Okobore town. While Tama was healed by Suru's medicine, Luffy ate some food. After Luffy heard Suru's story about Okobore town, Suru was attacked by the gifter Batman. During the confusion, Tama was abducted by Gazelle Man. Luffy, Zoro, Kiku, and Komachiyo quickly pursued the gifter and they headed for Bakura town. At the town's gates, Luffy yelled out Tama's name and the group were confronted by swordsmen, but Luffy knocked them out with a Haoshoku Haki. While traveling through the town, Kiku told Luffy and Zoro about the town's history. A defeated sumo wrestler was suddenly hurled towards them, but Luffy caught him with one hand. They then came across a sumo wrestling tournament where Urashima was winning matches. As Urashima's men were taking Kiku to him, Luffy was amazed when Kiku sliced off Urashima's top knot with her sword. When Urashima tried to attack Kiku in a fit of rage, Luffy intercepted him and engaged him in a sumo match. Luffy dodged his opponent's attack and sent him flying out of the ring and crashing into a building. Many enemies then came to confront the group. Luffy fought back, demanding the boss of the town to show up. Hold'em later arrived at the scene while holding Tama hostage. As Hold'em accused the group of being part of the group of thieves, Kiku warned Luffy not to anger Hold'em carelessly. She also informed Luffy and Zoro that Jack was the ruler of the Kuri region and attacking Hold'em would have serious repercussions. When the headliner Speed arrived with a wagon of food, Luffy and Zoro decided to steal it. Luffy quickly attacked Hold'em and grabbed Tama while Zoro struck down the beast pirates escorting the wagon. Once he heard how Hold'em harmed Tama, Luffy dropped Tama in midair and turned around to attack Hold'em and struck him in the face with a powerful Red Hawk punch. With Hold'em taken down, Luffy then grabbed Tama again and tried to ride on the back of Speed, thinking she was a horse. Speed got angry, but when Tama offered some kibidango from her body, she ate it and became subservient to Luffy and Tama, carrying them out of Bakura Town as they made their way to Okobore Town. They later picked up Law along the way, and once they arrived at Okobore Town, they delivered the food to the citizens, and Luffy crushed 3 gifters who tried to stop them. As Tama ate an apple, Luffy promised her that she would not be hungry again. After scolding Luffy and Zoro for their reckless behavior, Law decided to take them to the ruins of Oden's castle. Luffy then parted ways with Tama but decided to keep the sword he took from Hitetsu. Luffy, Zoro, Law, and Kiku rode on Komachio as they traveled to the castle ruins. As they approached the castle, Zoro wandered off somewhere, and Kiku ran away in tears. When they reached the top of the mountain, Law showed Luffy the gravestones for the Kozuki family, including Kinemon, Momonosuke, Kanjuro, and Raizo. Luffy was surprised and initially thought they were dead, but Kinemon and Momonosuke then came out to meet him and Kiku returned to embrace Kinemon. The group then sailed to Wano with Luffy, arrived at the ruins as well, and Law took them inside to talk. There, Kinemon revealed that he, Momonosuke, Kanjuro, and Raizo had escaped from Orochi's takeover by traveling 20 years forward in time. Luffy then listened as Kinemon explained more about the past, such as the story of Oden, the time of his execution, the rumor about Toki, and what Kinemon's group did right after arriving at present time. Kinemon then went over a plan to attack Onigashima, the island where Kaido resided, in 2 weeks. Kinemon explained about the Fire Festival and how the decisive battle would play out. After giving the group specific tasks to do, Kinemon gave them new clothes and summoned Shinobu to guide them. When Kaido arrived at the Kuri region, Law alerted Luffy to his presence. Seeing Kaido above Okobore Town, Luffy rushed off with Law following him. After Kaido destroyed Oden Castle, Luffy responded by attacking Kaido with a Gear 3 attack. The attack knocked Kaido to the ground with an enormous crash. Luffy then proceeded to run towards Oden Castle to check out his friends. But he came across a badly injured Speed, who told him that she tried to get Tama to safety. But Kaido intercepted and attacked them, leaving Tama's fate unknown. Law tried to tell Luffy to flee, but an enraged Luffy decided to once again engage the Emperor. Kaido unleashed his fire breath at them, but Luffy dodged and struck Kaido with Elephant Gatling. This dropped Kaido to the ground again, and he entered his human form while laying down. Luffy activated Gear 4 and unleashed an aggressive barrage of attacks on him. The attacks were ineffective, and Kaido retaliated with Raimei Hake, rendering Luffy unconscious with a single blow. Kaido then ordered his men to imprison Luffy, deciding to break his spirit and turn him into a subordinate. As Kaido's men surrounded Luffy, he instinctively knocked out some of them with Haoshoku Haki. On the next day, Luffy was taken to prison at Udon and thrown into a cell next to Kid. Both Luffy and Kid swore payback against Kaido before Luffy noticed Kid next to him. A few days later, both of them were competing over who could do more work at the prisoner mine. Dobon then confronted the two over the amount of kibidango rations they required. He prepared to discipline them as he had his hippo put them into its mouth. However, Luffy and Kid quickly knocked out Dobon and his hippo. Luffy also picked up an injured old man and carried him on his shoulder. On the next day, the old man that Luffy helped expressed his gratitude to Luffy, who then gave Hyo some of his meal tickets in an act of kindness. While Luffy was working, Raizo appeared beside him and informed him that he had located the keys to Luffy's sea stone handcuffs, but it was heavily guarded. Raizo then asked Luffy to wait a little longer before vanishing. Caribou approached Luffy and tried to talk to him with the intention of allying and escaping from the prison, but Luffy rejected him, telling Caribou to go ally with Kid. Caribou began to tell Luffy about the rumors of how Kid lost an arm, until Kid appeared and interrupted him. After Kid explained his side of the story, Luffy and Kid began arguing over who would defeat Kaido. After news of Kid's escape from the prisoner mines was announced, Alpaca Man tormented Luffy by spitting on him and questioned if he had helped Kid escape. When Luffy saw one of the guards attacking Hyogoro, he rushed to attack the guard. Luffy then kicked the guard in the face and knocked him down, causing an uproar in the prison. The warden stepped in and attacked Luffy. Afterwards, Luffy continued with his defiance by trying to escape. Luffy and Hyogoro were then caught and brought before Queen, who attempted to convince Luffy to join the Beast Pirates, only for Luffy to reject the offer. Luffy and Hyogoro were sentenced to fight in death matches called the Sumo Inferno. Both of them were forced to wear collars that will behead them if they step out of the ring, but they were allowed to have their handcuffs removed for combat. As the first group of opponents attacked them, Luffy instantly knocked them out with Haoshoku Haki. As he defeated more opponents, Luffy tried to learn an advanced application of Busoshoku that would allow him to emit the armament to a short distance. Luffy and Hyogoro were eventually confronted by Alpaca Man and Modillo Man. During the fight, Luffy told Hyogoro how to dodge their attacks. When Luffy told Hyogoro about trying to learn an advanced Busoshoku Haki technique, hoping to use it to break through Kaido's scales, Hyogoro demonstrated this technique and defeated Alpaca Man with it. Luffy affirmed that this was the exact technique he wanted to learn and asked Hyogoro to teach it to him. Hyogoro tried to teach Luffy, but he continued defeating opponents without making any progress. The Sumo Inferno was put on hold when night came, but Luffy and Hyogoro were left in the ring as the Beast Pirates retired for the rest of the day. After knocking out the nearby guards with Haoshoku Haki, Luffy told Hyogoro his reason for wanting to defeat Kaido. Afterwards, Raizo and Karabu approached the ring. Karabu told Luffy he wanted to become his subordinate, and Luffy decided to accept his help. When Hyogoro revealed the potential allies within the prison, Luffy became eager to rally them. During the night, Luffy and Hyogoro ate Oshiruko that were stolen from Queen, but overate and grew fat. On the next day, as the Beast Pirates gathered around the ring, Luffy and Hyogoro prepared for the next set of matches, but Queen went to turn on the filming pond Tanishi. Luffy then witnessed the execution of Shimotsuki Yasuie. When Luffy commented that no one should laugh when someone dies, Hyogoro explained about the side effect of the smile fruits. As his crewmates were causing chaos at the execution site, Luffy cheered for them. He was then surprised to see that Kid had been recaptured while attempting to rescue Kamazo, who was revealed to be Killer. After Queen subjugated Kid and Killer to water torture and threatened to leave them submerged until Luffy and Hyogoro die, Luffy attempted to attack Queen, but he easily caught his punch and threw it aside. As tensions between Luffy and Queen began to heat up, they heard a loud noise coming from outside the gate. Luffy was then surprised to see an amnesiac Big Mom breaking into the prison. As Big Mom and Queen argued about Oshiruko, Luffy told them to pull Kid and Killer out of the water. Luffy was then surprised to see Big Mom overpowering Queen. He was relieved to see Kid and Killer saved from drowning after Queen crashed into the contraption holding them. When Big Mom didn't find any Oshiruko, Luffy unwittingly admitted that he ate the Oshiruko that Big Mom was looking for. Big Mom directed her anger towards Luffy and pushed him and Hyogoro out of the ring. Fortunately, Luffy managed to remove the collars. Hyogoro stayed in Big Mom's path, hoping that Luffy could become stronger by fighting her. To protect Hyogoro, Luffy prepared to face Big Mom head-on. Luffy realized that what he did to remove his and Hyogoro's death collars was the same technique that he saw Rayleigh use to remove Kami's exploding collar at Sabaody Archipelago 2 years ago. On Sabaody Archipelago 2 years ago. However, since he used it in the heat of the moment, Luffy wasn't sure how to activate it at will. Luffy attempted to have his haki flow through his hands, but Big Mom instantly sent him and Hyogoro crashing into a wall. Luffy worriedly apologized to Hyogoro as he pulled him out of the wall, and Hyogoro revealed that he used haki just in case. Hyogoro told Luffy more about the advanced uses of Busoshoku Haki before he and Luffy were separated by Big Mom, who pursued Luffy into the neighboring prisoner iron factory. After running through the prisoner mines, he led Big Mom back to where he started, and Queen attempted another attack on Big Mom. Afterwards, Big Mom regained her memories and fell asleep. Queen and most of his subordinates quickly took Big Mom on a ship heading for Onigashima, leaving Babanuki to lead the small remainder of the crew in the prison. With communications cut off, Luffy decided to take down Babanuki and his forces and take over the prison. Luffy excitedly took on the Beast's pirates, rushing to attack him as he worked to advance his Busoshoku Haki at will. Babanuki then ordered the prisoners to help subdue Luffy, and they obeyed his command. Luffy wondered why they were following Babanuki's orders, and they replied that they had no hope in overcoming Kaido and Orochi, having tried and failed to rebel against them 20 years ago and losing everything in the process. Kawamatsu shouted from inside his cell, encouraging Luffy to tell the prisoners about their hope. After Raizo freed Kawamatsu, Kiku came and forced the prisoners off of Luffy. Having reunited with Chopper and Kiku, who was revealed to have been born a boy, Luffy prepared to fight once more. Luffy and his group fought against the Beast's pirates, but they were soon cornered by prisoners who were infected by the mummy virus. Luffy fearlessly made contact with the infected carriers and ignited the prison spirit by showing that their agonizing infected situation was no different from their life as slaves in Udon, and he promised them that he and his group would liberate Wano Country from Kaido's oppression. Babanuki prepared to use an excitement shell, but Luffy's advanced Kenbunshoku Haki enabled him to stop Babanuki in time by tangling the trunk of his elephant, causing the shell to explode inside Babanuki's body. After the prison takeover, Luffy's condition worsened. As Chopper worked to treat him, Luffy reunited with Tama and Momonosuke. Luffy made Momonosuke angry by calling him useless. Chopper successfully developed a cure and treated Luffy and all those infected. Upon meeting the 4 Yakuza bosses, they threatened Luffy for speaking casually to Hyogoro, but Hyogoro vouched for him. As the day of the Fire Festival drew closer, Luffy continued training his Bosushoku Haki with Hyogoro supervising him. Luffy eventually learned how to use advanced Bosushoku Haki, and he returned to Amigasa village with Tama and Chopper 2 days before the decisive battle. Luffy was excited to be given new armor by Hitetsu. He then wondered about Jinbei's fate, but he was certain that Jinbei would eventually arrive at Wano Country. On the day before the raid in Onigashima, Luffy spoke with Kinemon before the latter headed out with his group. Luffy later practiced his advanced Bosushoku Haki on a tree as he expressed eagerness to fight Kaido again. On the day of the Fire Festival, the Straw Hats, Heart Pirates, and Kid Pirates arrived at Port Tokage and entered the battle with the Beasts Pirates. After rescuing Kinemon's group, the Straw Hats were informed by the Beasts Pirates of how the rebels were prevented from gathering at Port Tokage, and that Kaido formed an alliance with Big Mom. Undeterred, Luffy, Law, and Kid then destroyed a Beast Pirate ship together. Afterwards, Luffy was excited to see that Denjiro arrived along with all of Ninja Pirate Mink's Samurai Alliance allies. While Kanjuro fled to Onigashima with Momonosuke, Luffy was shocked to learn that Kanjuro was a spy working for Orochi. After Momonosuke ordered the alliance to press forward without worrying about him, Luffy was impressed and promised to rescue Momonosuke. As the alliance was attacked by a beast pirate ship with long-range cannons, Luffy was overjoyed to see Jinbei arriving and joining the battle. With Jinbei officially part of the crew, the Straw Hats proceeded to take over the port in front of Onigashima. The crew then arrived at Onigashima with the rebels. After disembarking, Luffy received a beast pirate's disguise from Kinemon. When the Kid Pirates went ahead into Onigashima, Luffy tried to follow them. While searching for Kid, Luffy became enraged when some Beasts Pirates members callously wasted some Oshiroku, remembering how happy Tama was to receive some. In a fit of rage, Luffy struck with them a Gear 3 attack. Zoro then found Luffy and berated him for causing a scene, but when Luffy explained his reasons, Zoro went along with him. During the ensuing chaos, the 2 Straw Hats were confronted by the surrounding Beast Pirates. Appu attacked and injured the duo with his Devil Fruit powers, forcing them to retreat. They were saved from Appu when Kid landed a surprise attack on his former ally. The situation became more chaotic as a number entered the fray. As Luffy, Zoro, Kid, and Killer ran to the castle, they were able to defend against Appu's next attack by covering their ears. As Luffy fought his way through inside Kaido's castle, he ran into Ulti and Page 1. When Luffy said he was going to become the Pirate King, Ulti angrily responded that Kaido would take that title as she headbutted him. After a brief clash, Ulti managed to send Luffy crashing into the floor, but she sensed that he was unharmed, and so transformed into her Pachycephalosaurus hybrid form. Luffy emerged from his crater and rushed towards Ulti and Page 1, and before he could react, he grabbed hold of Ulti's horns and used them to slam her into the ground before defeating Page 1 with Elephant Gun. Ulti then grabbed Luffy's arms and prepared to headbutt him in her hybrid form, while Luffy prepared to transform into his Gear 4. But Yamato rushed in and struck Ulti with his Kanabo. Yamato then picked Luffy up and ran away as the Beast Pirates began chasing after them. And he introduced himself to Luffy while trying to take him to a private spot. Luffy had no desire to meet with Yamato and so attacked him, but Yamato managed to counter his attacks before the duo engaged in a powerful and destructive clash. In the immediate aftermath of the clash, Yamato took Luffy to the attic and was able to get him to stay and talk for 5 minutes. As Yamato took off his mask and revealed his real appearance, he told Luffy about his devotion to Odin, and asked him to fight with him to achieve the legendary samurai's dream of opening Wano's borders. During their conversation, Yamato revealed to Luffy not only why he left Onigashima, despite him wanting to do so, but also his desire to sail with Luffy's crew. They then listened to Kaido's speech, but they fell out of the attic when the floor below them collapsed. Luffy urged Yamato to show him the way to Momonosuke before he could be executed. As they fought through the Beast's pirates, Luffy informed Yamato that Momonosuke and his retainers were alive the whole time. Luffy then removed Yamato's handcuffs and tossed them away before they detonated and caused a huge explosion that sent them flying to the performance stage. Even though Kaido and Momonosuke were in sight, Luffy waited for the scabbards to start the all-out attack. During the raid, Big Mom saw Luffy and confronted him again. When Big Mom mocked Luffy of his mission to bring Kaido down, Luffy stated his actual goal was to bring both of them down along with their followers in this all-out war. After Kaido transformed into his dragon form and took the scabbards with him to the roof of the Skull Dome, Luffy told Kinemon that he would catch up with them later. After Luffy watched Sanji assist Shinobu in freeing Momonosuke, he became worried when King drove Sanji through a wall. Luffy decided to have Yamato assist Shinobu in protecting Momonosuke. Big Mom then resumed her attack on Luffy, further enraged that Luffy had interfered too much lately with all the festivities she tried to enjoy. Luffy realized he had to deal with Big Mom first before he could deal with Kaido. As the battle at the live stage unfolded, Luffy told Shinobu to trust Yamato. He then attempted to jump to the roofless Skull Dome along with Zoro, but Queen prevented their advance. When the other Straw Hats arrived, the crew assembled on the live stage. The samurai fought to open a path for the Straw Hats, but they struggled to bring one of the numbers down. So Zoro sliced its club and Jinbei saved some samurai from the falling piece while Luffy went on to attack the number with Gear 4. At this moment, he encountered Diaz Drake, who struck down another of the numbers. Afterwards, Drake offered to join forces with him. Unlike Zoro, Frankie, and Jinbei, Luffy immediately accepted Drake's help. As Luffy and Sanji rushed to reach Kaido, Appu tried to attack them, but they quickly covered their ears. When Hatra arrived, Sanji told Luffy to ignore him so they didn't waste time with a pointless fight. As they continued on, Sanji had to constantly keep Luffy from engaging in pointless fights. They were confronted by Briscola, but Jinbei arrived to aid them. After defeating Briscola, Jinbei offered to escort Luffy and Sanji to the roof. The trio reached the first level of the castle, and they got past 2 Shinichis along the way. As they went through the third level, Sanji separated from Luffy and Jinbei. The two ran into rebels from Udon, and they built a ladder to the 4th level. At the 4th level, Luffy separated from Jinbei, who decided to remain on the floor to hold back Who's Who and his subordinates. At the 5th level, Luffy found that the Mink tribe had cleared his way to the roof. Once he arrived there, he joined up with Zoro, Law, Kid, and Killer as they prepared to fight Kaido and Big Mom. Luffy briefly ignored the 2 emperors to check up on Kinemon and his group, who were wounded but still alive. Luffy agreed to take Wano's fate upon his shoulders and asked Law to send the scabbard somewhere safe. After Law did so, Luffy dodged an attack by Kaido and struck back with a new and powerful Gear 3 attack called Gomu Gomu no Red Rock that made Kaido bleed, shocking both emperors. Kaido then struck back by attacking with his club. Luffy managed to avoid the full brunt of the attack, but was still grazed by Kaido. Big Mom attempted to attack Luffy with Prometheus, but Zoro stepped in and cut the Sun Homie in 2. Kaido tried attacking Luffy again, but Law teleported Luffy to another spot. After Law berated Luffy for making it look like Law was taking orders from him, Luffy then challenged Law and Kid to a game of chicken when Big Mom launched an attack at the 3 captains. Not moving an inch, the 3 captains took the attack head on. They quickly recovered and attacked Kaido together, but the Emperor transformed and joined Big Mom in the sky, ready to launch a counterattack. Kaido then used the roar to unleash several wind blades on the 5 members of the worst generation. Luffy dodged them and struck Kaido with Gomu Gomu no Kong rifle, which injured him. Right after Killer got struck by Big Mom's Indra, Kaido tried to chomp on Killer, but Luffy kicked Kaido away with Rhino Schneider. Kaido prepared to use Bolo Breath on Luffy, but Zoro had Law teleport him in front of Kaido so he could defend Luffy by cutting Kaido's flames. Big Mom unleashed Tenman Daijizai's Tenjin on Luffy and his allies. Luffy got struck but was unharmed due to his body being rubber. He then got hit by Kaido's Bolo Breath, but to Kaido's surprise, Luffy came out unscathed, claiming it was his guts that protected him. He then struck Kaido with Gomu Gomu no Kong Gatling. Eventually, Luffy got exhausted from the stress of using Gear 4 and reverted back, forcing Zoro to protect him from both Kaido and Big Mom's attacks. Luffy then watched as Kaido transformed into his human beast form. Luffy eventually recovered from the effects of Gear 4 and resumed fighting. Insisting that the attacks so far were being effective, Luffy kept stubbornly assaulting Kaido and Big Mom, who repeatedly struck him away as the other supernovas discussed a way to separate the 2 emperors. When Kaido and Big Mom prepared a devastating combined attack, Luffy was able to see into the future the range and scope of the shockwave, alerting the others about it. After Zoro managed to delay the attack for an instant and Law teleported everybody to safety, Luffy attempted to punch Kaido once more, giddily noticing that the Emperor was weakened enough to start dodging attacks instead of enduring them, thus confirming his suspicions from before. Kaido countered Luffy's punch with a series of attacks of his own, managing to knock the Straw Hat Captain out. Like the prior confrontation at Kuri, Luffy kept glaring at Kaido even while unconscious, something that Kaido noted. Luffy didn't stay down for long, and in fact was able to deduce the secret behind Kaido's immense power and defenses after observing the Emperor's latest attack and reminiscing his own training with Hyogoro. Telling Kaido that he was fighting for his Wano friends and would refuse to submit to him, Luffy learned how to coat his body with Haoshoku Haki, allowing him to defend and counterattack Kaido's strikes without even making contact with the Emperor. Confident now that he had a reliable way to hurt Kaido, Luffy declared to Law and an unconscious Zoro that he would defeat him. After Law left the battlefield with Zoro and Zeus, Kaido got up and, admitting that both he and Luffy were enjoying this fight, clashed once more with the Straw Hat Captain. However, Luffy lacked skill in his use of Haoshoku coding and was soon overpowered and defeated by Kaido. The unconscious Luffy was thrown off the flying Onigashima and fell towards the sea. As he sunk into the depths, the Kaido disappointedly noted that Luffy was not able to become Joy Boy. However, as Luffy sunk into the sea, he used the voice of all things to transmit a message to Momonosuke, to tell his crew that he will be back and that he will win against Kaido. He also used it to call the Heart Pirates who were aboard the Polar Tang to come and rescue him. After they brought him into the ship and pushed the water out of his lungs, he awoke and began demanding meat. Having reached Tokage Port, even after Luffy ate the Heart Pirates' entire stock of food, he demanded more, which they fortunately managed to procure thanks to Caribou being nearby, with months' worth of provisions stored within his swamp. As he ate, he reunited with a sobbing Momonosuke, who just recently landed on the mainland thanks to Shinobu's kite, and had not long ago witnessed Kiku and Kinemon fall before his eyes. Luffy told the boy to stop crying and to transform into his dragon form and fly him back to Onigashima. Thanks to Caribou's provisions, Luffy regained his strength back, and was later amazed to see Momonosuke in his adult dragon form thanks to Shinobu's devil fruit powers, asking Momonosuke to fly to Onigashima and get another chance at beating Kaido. Still, Luffy was angry at Momonosuke's fear of heights, which in his eyes should be over now that he's become an adult dragon. Momonosuke then gradually overcame his fears, descending towards Onigashima, with Luffy barely hanging onto his horn. They would both pass through several parts of the castle while leaving everybody in shock about a second dragon on Onigashima. When they finally reached the roof and spotted Kaido, Luffy was quick to transform into his Gear 4, Snake Man, and attack Kaido with Jet Culverin, unknowingly striking simultaneously with Yamato, who had been stalling Kaido the whole time. Upon noticing each other, the two were happy to see each other again at last. Shortly thereafter, Kaido transformed into his dragon form, preparing to face all three of them at once, with Luffy standing above Momonosuke, confirming his name and dream of becoming Pirate King when asked by Kaido. After Momonosuke barely dodged Kaido's attack, Luffy would then take over the first strike at Kaido, but not before telling Momonosuke to bite Kaido, hitting Kaido with Elephant Gun and sending him headfirst into the ground. When Kaido was preparing to attack Momonosuke after being bitten by the latter, Luffy came to Momonosuke's rescue, punching Kaido while using Haoshoku Infusion and sending him into the ground headfirst once again. Thanks to a hidden Mary on the roof, Luffy was able to transmit his message to all of Onigashima to declare that he would defeat Kaido, boosting the morale of his allies and crew. As Kaido transformed into his human beast form, the Emperor swung his Kanabo, and Luffy met it with his punch, both of them infusing their attacks with Haoshoku Haki, and clashing with enough force to split the sky above Onigashima, revealing the full moon previously hidden above it. Soon after the sky-splitting clash, Luffy told Yamato to take Momonosuke and flee, wanting a chance to defeat Kaido 1v1. When Kaido attempted to stop them from retreating, Luffy restrained the Emperor by wrapping his legs around Kaido's neck. Both Luffy and Kaido then resumed their fight, once again using Haoshoku Infusion, trading blows with each other before Luffy sent Kaido back with his Gomu Gomu no Rock Gun, simultaneously falling back. However, both quickly got up, started laughing, and commented on the fight finally becoming fun. To Luffy's annoyance, Kaido would then start drinking alcohol, although he stated that he has to become stronger as he finally acknowledged Luffy's power. When Luffy attempted to strike at Kaido, the latter went through several stages of a special state called Shuron Hake due to his alcohol consumption. In his Wadai Jogo state, he dealt a severe blow to Luffy with Ragnarok that created a large crack in the roof of Onigashima. Kaido entered the Ochikomi Jogo mode in his dragon form and lamented over not being able to protect Onigashima and the time it would take to rebuild it, before using Tatsumaki Kaifu on an approaching Luffy. He then shifted to his Naki Jogo state and returned to his hybrid form, crying as he prepared to use Rame Hake on Luffy. However, Luffy was successful in dodging this attack and landed a reverse Haoshoku-infused kick on Kaido's chin. The Emperor, still crying profusely, grabbed Luffy's leg with his tail and attempted to headbutt him. The two combatants had a headbutt clash powered by Haoshoku Haki, with their foreheads not touching. Kaido won out the clash as Luffy remarked that Kaido's Haki was growing stronger as he was sent reeling. Kaido then entered the final stage of Shuron Hake, Okori Jogo, and angrily fired off 2 Boro breaths before he met Luffy's Gomu Gomu no Rock Gatling with Gundari Ryusei Gun. However, during the flurry of attacks, Luffy blocked a swing of Kaido's Hasakai with Haoshoku Haki and managed to strike the Emperor's abdomen with a Haoshoku-infused kick, bolstered by Gear 2 and Gear 3, seemingly damaging Kaido significantly. When Big Mom was defeated, the two pirates were in the midst of a clash of Haki-infused attacks, with Luffy being pushed back. Sensing that Lin lost her battle, Kaido emitted his Haoshoku Haki in rage, though Luffy expressed how impressed he was that Law and Kid managed to win. Kaido then recalled how the first two met, before entering his Naki Jogo mode and bursting into tears. though Luffy responded by entering Gear 4 Snake Man and barraging Kaido with Gomu Gomu no Hydra, stating that Kaido's ambition meant nothing to him, how this was his final Gear 4, and how he wasn't stopping till he drove the King of Beasts out of Wano. Kaido was seemingly unable to respond to the omnidirectional Hydra attack, and contemplated how such an attack should be impossible due to the innate nature of rubber. As he slowly transitioned to his Amai Jogo mode, Kaido managed to escape the attack, using Nusubito Jogo and Advanced Kenbon Shoku, before transforming into his full beast form, grabbing Luffy in his mouth and flying high into the sky. He then let go of Luffy before firing a point-blank bolo breath straight down, which blasted the Straw Hat Captain all the way through Onigashima. Thankfully, Luffy managed to only escape the attack by transitioning into his Bound Man form and flying back to the top of the island. He then got above Kaido and landed a Gomu Gomu no Over Kong gun on the Emperor, which disrupted the bolo breath the dragon was preparing to fire. However, Kaido quickly recovered, entering his hybrid form and using Satsuriki Jogo mode to floor Luffy with Horai Hake. With Luffy resolving to end this with one final hit, he quickly bounced back and charged at the Emperor with another Over Kong gun, with Kaido dashing at him whilst preparing another Horai Hake. However, CP0 agent Guernica suddenly appeared and locked Luffy's attacking arm by grabbing onto it and using Tekai, allowing Kaido to knock the Straw Hat Captain down. Guernica escaped the strike, releasing just before the Emperor hit, whilst Kaido can only attack in despair as he relived another exciting battle being sabotaged by outside influences, just like during his duel against Oden, leading to Luffy passing out and laying on the ground as Kaido descended towards the live floor after dealing with the Guernica. However, shortly afterwards, Luffy's body seemed to transform as he was seen smiling during the transformation. Luffy was then monologuing about how he could hear his heartbeat and still stand despite being defeated by Kaido. He then jumped into the air, being transformed into a new form, awakening his Devil Fruit while calling the new form Gear 5. In this form, he emitted a huge blast of Haoshoku Haki, taking out several beast pirates on the live floor before he enlarged his arm and grabbed Kaido in his entire dragon form, dragging him onto the rooftop. He then tightly wrapped his arm around Kaido, swinging him around before slamming him back and forth on the surface. Kaido then retaliated, shooting a bolo breath at Luffy. Luffy, however, grabbed the ground beneath him, turning it into rubber, and thus reflected Kaido's attack at him while constantly laughing due to his Devil Fruit being awakened. Kaido then recovered and apologized for the CP0 agent's intervention, with Luffy accepting the apology and wanting to finish his fight with Kaido properly. While watching Luffy bouncing up and down, Kaido told him he awakened his Devil Fruit since he was turning the ground into rubber like himself, yet he felt like the transformation was akin to that of a Zoan fruit, which confused him. Nevertheless, he bit down on Luffy and swallowed him, only for Luffy to bounce around in his insides before using Gomu Gomu no Fusen to inflate both his and Kaido's body, causing him discomfort as the two floated up into the sky. Kaido tried to figure out how Luffy was able to make his body being like rubber just as Luffy was about to stretch his arms through Kaido's eyes to launch himself out of Kaido's body using Gomu Gomu no Dashutsu rocket, which caused additional discomfort to Kaido. Luffy then launched himself higher into the air and made himself a giant to step on Kaido, but Kaido evaded and chomped down on Luffy's torso. But Luffy grabbed his head and tail and started using him like a jump rope until Kaido used Bolo Breath to blast him far away. As Luffy recovered and ran back to him, Kaido changed into his hybrid form and struck Luffy with Kosanze Ragnaraku, slamming his head through the roof. As Luffy pulled his head back, Kaido remarked that their fight looked like something out of a picture book, but believed Luffy is at the end of his rope, which was confirmed when his awakened state wore off. Though Kaido himself fell to one knee, he told Luffy that after he died, he will tell everyone how valiantly he fought, but Luffy rejected this notion and changed back, assuring Kaido that he wasn't afraid of dying. Kaido managed to slam Luffy with Hasaikai a few times before Luffy bounced off a rock at Kaido while spinning his arms like a propeller. Kaido tried to block his attack while also trying to figure out what Luffy's power was, claiming no one is capable of taking him down, only to get punched straight through the face by Luffy and knocked onto his back. Kaido picked himself back up and asked Luffy who he was, to which Luffy answered that he was the one who will surpass him and become the Pirate King. Kaido acknowledged that Luffy still hasn't lost his spirit and how ridiculous his power was. He admitted he has lost a lot in this war, but believed Luffy has too, only for Luffy to retort that he'll take it all back. He used Gundari Ryuseigun on Luffy, but got hit multiple times by Luffy as well, whose punches stretched through him again. He then noticed smoke coming from the bottom of the roof and believed that the whole castle was on fire, and everyone would burn to death. But Luffy responded that he trusts his friends to handle the problem as Kaido fired a Kaifu attack that Luffy dodged. He then watched as Luffy grabbed a bolt of lightning with a smile on his face. Luffy used Gomu Gomu no Kaminari to throw the bolt of lightning at Kaido, but he sidestepped and slammed Luffy from the side, sending him flying far away again. Luffy used another lightning bolt to propel himself back to attack Kaido again, but he quickly dodged the attack and struck Luffy on the head. As he did so, he told Luffy that having a strong devil fruit isn't enough to conquer the seas. Roger himself didn't have one, yet he still became the Pirate King. And Kaido said that such hurdles can only be overcome with Haki, as he hit Luffy with Daitoku Rame Hake, knocking him into the air again. However, Luffy grabbed Kaido while being past the storm clouds, and Kaido tried to shake Luffy off, first by hitting his arm with Hasaikai, then changing into his full dragon form to hit him with Tatsumaki Kaifu and Bolo Breath. His efforts were futile, as not only did Luffy hang on, but inflated his other fist to a humongous size to finish Kaido off. Seeing Luffy's giant fist, Kaido decided to take it head-on as he enveloped himself in fire, which finally caused Luffy to let go of him, a move Kaido said was the right call. He told Luffy that Oden was burned to death, and ever since then, the people of Wano desperately clinged into the hope their savior would come. He also told Luffy that his fist would never hit him because his fire would vaporize it. However, Luffy only retorted at Kaido that he now knew how to actually hurt him, thanks to Hyogoro's teaching at Udon, replying to Kaido that he would send him to the bottom of hell. Before Kaido met Luffy's Gomu Gomu no Bajarangan with his Shoryu Kai and Hake. As they clashed, Kaido commended Luffy for coming so far, but believed he couldn't change the world. He did ask though what kind of world Luffy wanted to create, and he answered that he wanted to make a world where his friends could eat as much as they want, as his fist tore through Kaido's attack and punched Kaido so hard in the face he got hurled deep into the ground in front of the Flower Capital before Luffy himself passed out midair from exhaustion due to the fight. As Kaido sank deeper into the ground and fell into a lava pit, Luffy exited out of Gear 5 and dropped from the sky, where he was caught by Yamato, who smiled and congratulated him and Momonosuke on their incredible feats. The impact from Kaido landing in the pit destabilized an underwater volcano, which caused it to erupt, catching Kaido and Big Mom, who had also fallen into the pit, in the resulting explosion. A bandaged Luffy smiled as he was finally declared the winner of the final battle in the skies over Wano. Yamato caught Luffy as he fell, and both he and Zoro were tended to by Chopper later on, but not before he told Momonosuke to not reveal his name to the people of Wano, as he would then be treated as a hero for defeating Kaido. A week later, both Luffy and Zoro woke up and immediately demanded meat and booze respectively. As the crew celebrated their recovery, Luffy was shocked to see Momonosuke in his adult form for the first time, after initially not recognizing him. After the crew learned that there was going to be a massive festival to celebrate Wano's liberation, Luffy became excited to hear of it and decided to go to the baths with his friends before partying. As promised, Momonosuke didn't reveal his name to Wano, so the citizens came to know him as Joy Boy, but believed he had already left the country. Luffy proceeded to enjoy the festival with his crew and the rest of the Ninja Pirate Mink Samurai Alliance, along with Law and Kid's crews as well. Luffy then called for a toast celebrating the end of the long fight and the festival, when suddenly Kid barged in trying to attack him. Luffy didn't acknowledge his attack, however, and simply wrapped his arm around his fellow Supernova as he continued to celebrate. Kid quickly shook Luffy off and showed him the day's newspaper, which contained the formal declaration of the new 4 Emperors of the Sea: Shanks, Blackbeard, Luffy, and Buggy, much to Luffy's shock. After Admiral Ryokugyu retreated from Wano when Shanks intimidated him with his Haoshoku Haki, we see Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei sitting and acknowledging the Admiral's departure, Momonosuke's braveness, and the strong Haki they felt. Sanji says that they didn't need to lend a hand after all, and Zoro asks about whose Haki that was. Luffy then says that a familiar face just popped up in his head. Yamato then approached them and stated his intention of not leaving with the Straw Hats, but staying on the island for their peace of mind, since, with Kaido now gone, threats like Ryokugyu may appear more often. Luffy reluctantly agreed when Marco flew up to say goodbye, having found a ship close by, the Red Hair Pirates, who were willing to take him home. Luffy tried to give his thanks for helping him during the Summit War of Marineford, though Marco coolly shrugged it off, instead stating how proud Ace would be if he could see Luffy now, with the Straw Hat Captain grinning proudly at the praise. Later, Robin revealed that the ancient weapon Pluton was on the island, but Luffy had no interest in acquiring it. Tama then appeared with Shinobu, having become the Kunoichi's apprentice, with the girl requesting to join the crew if she was strong enough next time they met, with Luffy happily agreeing. A few days later, at Tokage Port, the Straw Hats decided to depart with Luffy, Kid, and Law, deciding to sail to separate islands as indicated by the 3 log pose needles. Law chose to go to the northeast, with Luffy and Kid drawing lots to go east. which Luffy lost, setting the Straw Hats heading to the southeast. Kid, while expressing his annoyance at the Emperors, started talking about Buggy's new crew, Cross Guild, which now has Crocodile and Dracula Mihawk supposedly under him, though Luffy heavily doubting this claim. Kid goes on to explain how Cross Guild was putting out bounties for Marines, now making them the hunted. After Kid received poneglyph markings from Law, he and Killer started talking about looking for the man with the burn mark, which got Luffy's attention. As the Straw Hats prepared to depart, Momonosuke charged at them in his dragon form before tackling Luffy as a human. And though Kinemon started scolding the Straw Hat captain, the young shogun broke down in tears, begging Luffy to stay. Luffy then had Usopp pass him a flag, which he, in turn, passed on to Momonosuke. He then stated that they were waiting for Momonosuke, and knowing how childish he was on the inside, granted the Shogun his Jolly Roger, telling him that in times of strife, to think on their adventure, and if anyone came to pick a fight, to show them the flag, as it indicates that they are also picking a fight with the Straw Hat Pirates. They then set sail, but not before Luffy gave Kinemon, Momonosuke, and Yamato an open invitation to join his crew, should they ever wish to become pirates. The Sunny and the Polar Tang set course to Mogura Port, where there's a gondola which could safely transport them to sea. However, after Kid taunted the other two captains for taking the safe route, Luffy and Law took control of their respective ships and, despite their crew's protests, sailed over the koi-climbing waterfall with the Kid Pirates, with the resulting fall breaking one of the Sunny's looms. Egghead Arc. Once the Sunny landed at the bottom of Wano Country's waterfall and the Straw Hats recovered, Luffy was severely beaten by Nami and placed in a cage. He apologized for his reckless actions and pleaded to be let out. Later, Luffy was released and learned from the newspaper that Nefertari Vivi was missing. Her father, Nefertari Cobra, was dead, and Sabo was credited with his killing. Luffy grew angry and distressed at this, proclaiming that Sabo would never do something like that, and wanting to go to Mary Geoise to rescue Vivi. However, Zoro talked him down, saying it would be foolish to attack the city, and that they needed to let Vivi live her own life until they knew for sure it was necessary to act. Robin then revealed the news that Buggy was now one of the 4 emperors, which a surprised Luffy believed was a mistake. She offered to share more news regarding the other people Luffy knew, but Luffy declined unless it was truly bad. Luffy then reaffirmed Sabo's innocence and revealed the dream he had shared to Sabo and Ace 12 years ago. The revelation of this dream provoked a strong response from the Straw Hats, with reactions ranging from delighted laughter to stunned silence. However, everyone supported it and expressed the drive to find the final road poneglyph that would allow them to reach Laugh-Tale. Days later, the Straw Hats entered a bitterly cold area as they drew closer towards their next island. Luffy saw a gigantic warm eddy and then noticed something inside of it, causing Zoro to cut it open. The strong winds blew Chopper overboard and Luffy stretched out to grab him, but was swept overboard as well. The mysterious figure then emerged from the eddy, revealing herself to be a child Jewelry Bonnie. Luffy stretched out his other arm to grab Bonnie, but they were then attacked by a giant mecha shark living in the water, causing the 3 of them to fall into the ocean. Jinbei dove in to save them and was forced to take them deep down to escape the mecha shark. They made their way to a cave in the coast of the island, where they dried their clothes, and Bonnie explained to Luffy that she was a fellow member of the worst generation. Luffy wished to look for a restaurant to get food, but Bonnie said he wouldn't find one as this was the future island Egghead, which contained Vegapunk's laboratory. Bonnie revealed that she came here to take revenge on Vegapunk for turning her father into a mindless cyborg. Luffy, Chopper, Jinbei, and Bonnie ventured into the cave and accessed Egghead's surface via a ladder, where they found themselves surrounded by futuristic machines. However, Luffy found that a lot of the creatures and food around him were nothing more than holographic illusions. Atlas, a satellite of Vegapunk, then appeared and Luffy punched her to see if she was real, causing her to get angry and punch him back. However, he landed against the cooking machine, which could make any food on demand, which he, Chopper, and Bonnie gorged on. When Jinbei asked Atlas who she was, she responded that she was Vegapunk, which Luffy and Chopper took at face value. Once the group had eaten their fill, Atlas departed, and Luffy discovered a machine which gave him new clothes. The rest of the group used the machine as well, but were then approached by a police pacifista which attacked them for using the cooking and clothing machines without paying. Luffy moved to launch a counterattack against it, but was kicked away by Bonnie, who believed that the pacifista was her father Kuma. Knowing this wasn't the case, Luffy rushed to save her from its laser attack. Following the blast, Bonnie used her Devil Fruit ability to change everyone's ages, causing the pacifista to no longer recognize them. As they recovered, they talked with Bonnie about Kuma's past and how he came into the world government's service. Luffy's group resumed exploring Egghead and came to the ruins of a very old mecha in a big scrap heap, While trying to get it to activate, a sudden burst happened as an old man, the original Vegapunk, appeared with half of his body inside the mecha due to a failed teleportation experiment. Luffy pulled him out and noticed that he was floating, which Vegapunk revealed was a function of the DOM shoes that they were all wearing. However, their attempts to activate this caused them to blast high into the air. Following this, Vegapunk explained more about himself to the pirates, including how he split his consciousness into 6 satellites, which included Atlas. Bonnie then tried attacking Vegapunk with his beam saber invention, but fainted after the beam attracted a horde of bugs. Vegapunk talked to Luffy about Momonosuke and his dragon transformation, revealing it was the result of his artificial devil fruit creation. Luffy then asked about the mecha, and Vegapunk revealed that it was the Iron Giant, which had been built 900 years ago and attacked Mary Geoise 200 years ago. Vegapunk then asked Luffy to take him off of Egghead. When Luffy asked why, Vegapunk revealed his main dream of creating a free and abundant energy source for the whole world, an energy which once powered the Iron Giant centuries ago. However, this research caused him to delve too deep into forbidden history, resulting in the world government now looking to eliminate him. Vegapunk then noted that CP0 was now on Egghead and reiterated his request to sail with Luffy. Luffy agreed because he liked the scientist's funny-looking head, and Vegapunk requested he take Bonnie to the labo phase above the clouds before this area became a war zone, saying he would meet them up there as he suddenly disappeared into thin air. As Luffy's group started heading to the requested location, they ran into Rob Lucci, who had just taken down Atlas using Rokugan. Initially ambivalent toward Lucci, Luffy became angry upon seeing what had happened to Atlas due to Atlas giving him food, and activated Gear 5 to fight the CP0 agent. Lucci countered by activating his awakened Leopard Zoan form, and the two of them engaged in a fierce battle. In the midst of their sparring, Sentomaru arrived with the Seraphim S-Snake, S-Hawk, and S-Bear to counter CP0's invasion, but was struck down by Lucci while distractedly conversing with Luffy. Sentomaru managed to remain conscious to prevent CP0 from assuming control over the Seraphim, and Luffy used his environment and awakened abilities to keep Lucci away from him, overwhelming the CP0 agent. Sentomaru told Luffy to go and get Vegapunk off Egghead, and Luffy joined Chopper, Jinbei, and a now conscious Bonnie as they took the vacuum rocket up to the labo phase, which they reached in seconds. Bonnie quickly raced into the labo phase, still intent on getting revenge on Vegapunk, and Luffy and Chopper raced after her to stop her. He, Chopper, and Jinbei reunited with Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Robin, and Frankie, but lost track of Bonnie and Vegapunk in the process. Luffy and Chopper went to look for the two of them, but couldn't find them even after searching the entire labo phase. Returning to the control room with the rest of the Straw Hats, all 6 of the Vegapunk satellites, and undercover CP0 agent / Vegapunk ally Stussy, who had incapacitated Lucci and Kaku. Satellite Shaka noted that they had lost control over the Frontier Dome that protected the labo phase from outside attack, meaning they were unable to get out of it. He told the group to do what they could to find the main Vegapunk, and as they all dispersed, Luffy remained in the room along with Zoro to recover from his exhaustion and watch over Lucci and Kaku. Originally able to hear everyone through a headset, the signal cut out, and Luffy went to Shaka to find out what was going on. Shaka revealed that the camera feeds around the labo phase were being rapidly cut off, meaning there was an enemy on the loose, inside the labo phase. Zoro then called for help, and Luffy and Shaka raced to him to find S-Hawk and S-Bear had arrived. The two Seraphim began attacking despite Shaka's orders, making him realize that one of the Vegapunks had ordered them to attack. Now conscious, Lucci and Kaku proposed that Luffy and Zoro free them from their sea stone shackles so they could team up against Seraphim, which the two Straw Hats found unappealing. Kaku promised they would go back in handcuffs once they were finished, and Luffy believed this, forcing Zoro to explain Kaku was lying. However, Luffy ultimately agreed to free them, saying he would beat them if they tried going after his friends. Luffy activated Gear 4 and he and Lucci performed a combined attack against S-Bear, while Zoro and Kaku attacked S-Hawk. Despite their powerful combined attacks, the Seraphim were able to get up little worse for wear. However, Zoro did notice that their physiologies were similar to King, who was a member of the rare Lunarian tribe. As the battle raged on, Shaka departed to join the search for the main Vegapunk. With the knowledge that the Seraphim strength was dependent on the flames on their back, Luffy's group moved to diminish those flames, to little initial success. S-Hawk then disappeared suddenly, and Lucci revealed that it was going to eliminate its weakest targets first. Zoro raced after it, and Luffy told Kaku to go with Zoro before turning his attention back to S-Bear. The following day, the culprit York was eventually found and outmatched by the Straw Hat Pirates and their allies, who subdued and chained her to the ground, with Usopp and the others now unpetrified, due to Luffy mistaking S-Snake for Boa Hancock and asking her to undo her power, which she surprisingly agreed to due to her seeming affection for Luffy. The entire group then listened in on York's forced conversation with the 5 elders. After York had revealed she had been captured by the Straw Hats, surprising the elders and everyone else listening, Luffy stated while eating that he didn't fully understand the situation, but was prepared to use York as a shield against the Marines, prompting Bonnie to state that they were in a hostage situation. Luffy then introduced himself to the 5 elders and stated he and his crew were Vegapunk's allies, and that if they cared about York's safety, they should call off the Marine fleet at the shore, surprising everyone in the room. Just as he was about to tell the elders who was alive in the Labo phase with him, Robin stopped him from telling him too much. Luffy then apologized and asked him to nicely back down, with Usopp angrily telling him to quit dreaming. Later in the Labo phase, when Vegapunk talked to Nami about their next destination, Luffy and Usopp both got excited when Vegapunk stated that one of the needles Nami's log pose was pointing towards leads to Elbaf. They then made plans with Vegapunk to escape Egghead using Vegaforce 01 to carry the Sunny over the Marine fleet, and then use Coup de Burst to finish escaping. But first, they need to deactivate the Frontier Dome. When Vegapunk tasked Lilith with piloting the robot, Frankie, Luffy, and Bonnie went with her to the robot and the Sunny. With Lilith happy that she finally gets to leave the island, Luffy and Bonnie both stated that they would miss the food. But Luffy then told her that Sanji would just cook for them, exciting Bonnie. When Luffy asked Bonnie why she's in such a good mood, she told him that she feels better now that she no longer wants Vegapunk dead. And we are now caught up, well, until more chapters get released before this video gets edited, but we are fairly caught up to One Piece.
Did you enjoy our video? Well, then be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.